Hey everyone, Caitlin here. Welcome back. Thanks for being here. I really appreciate you. Today we are going to talk about NPK and what it means and how to use it. So NPK is the numbers you'll see at the bottom of a bag of fertilizer. The N stands for nitrogen, the P, phosphorus, and the K is potassium. And they have different uses, so it's good to know this. The N for nitrogen is more about the growth of the plant above ground. The leaves, the stems, all that is what nitrogen helps. And then the P for phosphorus is more about the flowering plants and the plants that are going to produce fruit. And then the K, potassium, is more about the root system, and it helps with the roots being developed. So when you're looking at a bag, you have to decide, so there's so many bags out there, you have to decide what you need and what you're looking for. And what plant you're going to use it on. So what I do for, let's use tomatoes, for example, I don't necessarily want to encourage a ton of green growth because then the plant uses the energy from the fertilizer and uses the plant's energy to make a big plant. And it focuses more on that and less on flowering and fruiting. So you want to have a good-sized plant, lots of leaves for photosynthesis, but you don't want to feed your tomato plant so much nitrogen that's what it mostly does. When it comes to tomato plants, I would prefer to give mine more phosphorus and potassium. Potassium for the healthy roots, build a good, strong root system in the beginning, and then I want to be more heavy on the phosphorus later on with the tomato plants to help promote more flowering and fruiting. Because in the end, that's what I'm growing tomatoes for, is the fruit, and how many fruit can I get off each plant. But for lettuce and stuff where you want the leafy greens, kale and all that, if you do want to fertilize those, which typically they don't need that much, they're pretty self-sufficient on bare minimum, whatever happens to be in your compost. But if you did want to give them a little boost to something, that's where you would lean more heavily on the nitrogen for your leafy greens and stuff like that. So I have a few bags here in front of you of what I like to keep on hand. Let's start with this here. So this is blood meal. It's Espoma Organics, and blood meal, let me see if I can find the NPK on the bag for you. The NPK right there is 12-0-0, which means 12 nitrogen, 0 phosphorus, 0 potassium. So if you're wanting to give a boost of nitrogen to whatever you're growing, then you would use blood meal. Up close. And any granulated kind of fertilizer, it does take time for the plant to get it. So it has to be dissolved, broken down, and then the nutrients are available to the plant, and it takes a few weeks for something like that to happen. So we have your N here. This is if you're wanting to buy them separate. If you're wanting to individually fertilize your plants based on their current need, then you can buy them separate. You can also buy fertilizer that has NP and K at different strengths. You just have to shop around and decide what you want. If you're wanting a more multi-purpose, just throw it out there and give whatever to whatever plant. You can go that route too. It depends on how you want to do it and how you want to tailor your feeding to your plants. This one is Job's Organic, and it's another great one. Espoma and Job's are affordable and organic, and they work. I've tried them both, and I like them both. Oh. That's the soil acidifier. I grabbed the wrong bag. Okay. So, actually, I'm not sure if I have it. Okay. I do have a Job's. It's a blue bag, I believe, of bone meal. I might have some, I might not, so I'm going to have to order some if I don't. But bone meal is your phosphorus, so it's your P. It's the second number in the 3 numbers. So bone meal is for the flowering plants and fruiting plants. So if you're wanting to focus more on that, then you would get bone meal, not blood meal, but bone meal, and you would give that to your plants. And whenever you throw it down, if you want it to get to the roots faster, you can scratch it in around the plant into the soil and then water it in, and that'll help. And then the last thing, make sure I have the right one, is Greensand. And Greensand is 0, and then 0.1 for your potassium. So your potassium is the K in the NPK, and it's the last number out of the 3 numbers. And that is for roots. So if you're wanting to give a little bit of boost of potassium and give your roots a little boost of nutrients so the plant focuses on more root growth, then, and if that's all you wanted, you could give them just Greensand. And this is Espoma Organics as well. And then one of my favorites, I didn't bring it in and put it on the table because I buy it in bulk. I buy a big bag of it. I have the top ripped off of it, and it's still pretty full. So if I brought it in, I would probably tip it over and make a huge mess. So it's out in the garden in the backyard in its tote. And it's called Gardentone, and it's an Espoma Organic Gardentone. They have all your tones, your plant tone, your garden tone, your rose tone, your holly tone, and so on. And the Gardentone is a good mixture of your N, P, and K. I don't have the numbers memorized, but that's the one. Gardentone, sometimes plant tone, are the ones I would lean on if I just want to give whatever plant a balanced amount of fertilizer of a little bit of each kind. So Gardentone is my go-to when I'm wanting to do that. This one is it's from Fortify Organic, and I bought it on Amazon. And the NPK is right here, clean off the dirt. It's a 10-2-8. So it has everything in it, but it focuses more heavily on the nitrogen and the potassium. And again, the nitrogen is for the green growth, and the potassium at the end is for the root growth. And then the number in the middle, the 2 here, is your phosphorus for the flowering and fruiting growth. So in the beginning, when I transplant my seedlings outside, I let them get acclimated. So first you harden them off, and then whenever the transplant time is here, and you're putting them in the ground, then you give them a week or 2 or so, probably a week, to get acclimated and happy in their spot. You don't want to overwhelm them with transplanting them and fertilizing them like crazy, and you're doing all these things to them. They came from these little cups or seed trays or whatever you started them in a stable environment inside under your lights, and then you throw them out. You don't want to overwhelm them with a whole bunch of fertilizer as well. You also don't want to overwhelm your seedlings with fertilizer when they're in your house under your grow system, because they could burn them and they'll die. So just be careful when you're applying this stuff. So this is water soluble, which means I add it to a container of water, and then I dissolve it, and then I pour it on. That's why I have to wait a week at least before I use it. And the reason why I have chosen this to do only in the beginning is because it's going to ensure that my plants in the beginning are focusing heavily on growing and just sprouting up real big. They're already, they're little starts, they're little seedlings, and once they're acclimated, I want them to just take off and grow. I have about 160 days in my growing season, and I don't want my plant taking its time like for 100 days to grow before it gives me anything. So some of your indeterminate cherry plants can be like 60-something days, which is good. But some of the other tomato varieties, they take longer. I want them to grow. And then I back off because I don't want to keep giving them nitrogen, and then that's all they do. So they just get a hefty dose of nitrogen paired with the potassium here. So at the same time, they're getting these nutrients that are encouraging growth upward and growth underneath the roots. And they're not getting a bunch of nutrients to promote the flowering. I don't want them to flower yet. They're not strong enough. I want them to focus on a healthy plant and a healthy root system for the first few weeks, and then I want them to start flowering. So this is why I chose this particular one with this particular NP and K that is water soluble, because if it dissolves in the water and then you put it on there, the plants can start drinking it right away. The rest of these are not ones that you dissolve. These are ones that you grab a handful, measure it if you want to. I never do. Measuring and then calculating the square foot and all that, that's just too much. Just grab a handful, throw it where you need it. But these ones take time. They take a few weeks. They don't dissolve right away, and they need to be broken down. But, oh, this is a soil acidifier. Pretend it's bone meal because that's what I meant to grab. But this one dissolves and is available right away to the plants. So you will see, within a few days, you will see a difference. Like, whoa. And make sure you follow. It's 1 scoop with 1 gallon of water. Like the bag says, don't do more or less or anything like that, because you do not want to burn your plants, kill them with too much fertilizer. So I think that's all I wanted to go over. Your NP and Ks, your water soluble, your not water soluble, what I like to use. So if I see a particular struggle with a certain plant, or I only want a plant to have a certain something, then I will only give it a certain something, which is why I have my N, my P, pretend that's my P, because I grabbed the wrong bag, and my K, and I will feed them what I think they need. If I just want to give them an in general boost, because I'm not confident in their growth rate at the moment, therefore I'm not confident in the amount of nutrients I have in my garden beds, then I will give them a boost of a handful of the Gardentone to eventually offer them nutrients. I don't fertilize very often, and then this is in the very beginning for certain things like my tomato plants. So they'll get this in the beginning, they'll get this as needed if I feel like they need that, and then they'll get the Gardentone mid-season just for a little boost. All right, well, if you have any questions, if I forgot to mention anything, then just leave it in the comments and I'll be happy to answer your questions. I hope you have a wonderful day. Thanks for being here, and I'll see you next time. Bye.